I think it's very telling that this case has to do with Ripple's interactions with institutional finance, right? Banks that will spend hundreds of millions or billions of dollars. That's what the case is about, not mum and dad who puts 5 or 10 grand in.
Start, we need to tell you up front we are not a licensed financial planning, accounting or law firm. This is simply an education program which will give you factual information. We do not give any general or specific advice around finance, business, investing, options trading or anything else. That is not what this presentation does. Please see a licensed financial planner when it comes to any investment advice you need.
It's Ed Radio Australia. We're here for the greater wealth. A little bit of a pause there for a dramatic effect as the internet tries to speed up to get to the pace of each Radio Australia, mate. Like, we move so fast around here. Tell you what, future's so bright, you've got to wear shades.
Online speeding fines.
I wonder when we'll get a fine for that. Hey, it's got to be coming now.
Good, we have a good tax revenue raising, isn't it? Eh?
Geez, mention that. Yeah. Mention just another way of finding tax, eh? Because they just don't have enough. I don't know if this is still the case, right? We'll throw straight in on this. Do you know there was a study done years ago that if you take all the tax and tariffs into account of every dollar that you earn, right, guess how much you actually retain after all of those cross costs?
About 69% your tax.
No, it's worse.
No,
apparently it was 93%. So you keep 7 cents. We are going to talk about the great marriage between finance, politics, and, well, actually, it's not a marriage. It's more of a collision course. What are we going to delve into today? What's our first subject?
Well, the first topic is quite significant. It's going to sound boring if you're not really in the loop, but it is very, very compelling.
Why are you so boring, Derek?
It's very compelling. The entire finance industry. Now, there is a cryptocurrency called Ripple.
Yes.
XRP is its ticker. And it's had a 4-year running case against the SEC in the United States.
Yep.
Who claimed that they were selling derivatives by doing what they were doing.
Okay.
Now, they have been found cleared, or they've been found innocent on charges where it was related to retail investors.
Okay.
However, in terms of institutional sales, they have been fined $125 million US.
Right,
now, they're actually quite happy about that because it was looking like it could be $1 billion. Right. And there were concerns if the company could survive $1 billion fine.
Yeah, okay.
So this is really interesting for this because two fronts. One, it gives great definition from a legal perspective where Ripple stands now.
This is important. This is very important.
It's the one cryptocurrency that's actually been gone through the courts and now being validated as, hey, you're innocent in this instance. On this one, we want you to tighten up the issues here and there.
Okay.
The second thing is it has implications for the wider cryptocurrency market as well.
Yeah.
So they're all watching this and reading the findings very, very carefully. Will the SEC appeal the decision? They've got about 60 days to do so.
Oh, I reckon they will.
And, well, I don't know. Maybe they'll be happy to move on. But the reality is this is an interesting cryptocurrency. It's one that is trying to work with the banks in terms of cross-border payments around the world. Okay. And so there's a lot of paperwork in this space that you have to do with all the regulation for banks, institutions, and you're not just dealing with one jurisdiction.
Of course not.
You're dealing with the global jurisdiction here. So this is a really interesting space to watch as far as this cryptocurrency is concerned. Of course, those who've been holding those Ripple tokens were very excited on the weekend when that occurred. It did a bit of a 17% surge, but that's pretty normal for crypto. So it's not something that you'd go, oh,
it's not huge by crypto standards.
A 20% swing up or down is pretty normal.
With crypto, they talk about X, they talk about times, when it goes times its value, of course, and you're talking about percentages, which is far more fiat kind of style. So for them, that's something that's
I'm pretty excited, actually. I mean, the last time that I got a $125 million fine, I was celebrating too. Like it was brilliant. I was like, oh my goodness, only 125 million, fantastic.
Isn't that beer money? I mean, come on. Right?
But I will say this. Thank goodness for the SEC. Thank goodness for the government, because they've really looked after the people as usual. They managed to not prosecute them for anything to do with retail investors. Now, I actually don't know an awful lot about Ripple or crypto in general, but they didn't prosecute them for anything to do with retail stuff. It was just the institutional stuff they got in trouble for. And let's be honest. I mean, those poor banks and insurance companies, they don't know what they're doing. So, thank goodness the government's there to look after them.
Well, it's interesting you say that because the banks are wanting clarity on this.
Really?
They want to know where they stand in relation to doing deals with this organization.
Well, hang on. Will this court case give that clarity?
I think it will.
Yeah.
I think it's a green light. You're going, okay.
Well, so.
They basically said in the ruling, the judges said it's likely that you've gone over the line here.
Yep.
It's likely you may do that again. We want closer scrutiny, but put this in political context, right? What I've been watching in terms of the Bitcoin 2024 conference that happened 2 weeks ago, where Trump was invited to go, and of course Kennedy was involved as well in this, and Trump's played his hand, so to speak, and saying we want to be number one in the world in terms of development of cryptocurrency. He said that outright. He also mentioned that we want to get rid of the head of the SEC and fire him, and the crowd just went nuts. And he said, I didn't realize that was so popular. Let me say this again. And so, it's really interesting. This is a space that I think is getting political definition. Not just that, then Treasury, there's a bill before Treasury, and they're wanting to hold 5% of Bitcoin in Treasury reserves for the future as well. The United States is going, we're in this. So watch that space because it can totally change, I believe, what the finance industry, how it's operating.
I agree. I mean, I look.
I think you're both a bunch of right-wing conspiracy theorists. When we saw the South American countries do it, it was disgraceful. It should never have happened. When we saw Jamie, what's his name, Jamie Dillon, the head of JP Morgan, say 10 years ago that if he found out that any of his staff members or traders owned Bitcoin or any other crypto, he'd fire them on the spot. Crypto is a right-wing conspiracy theory. Oh, sorry. I take it back. Okay, the government's doing it now. Okay, it's okay. It's all good. It's okay. Yeah.
Well, here's the biggest flip. JP Morgan will now accept Ripple, XRP, for credit card payments.
Boom. Look at that.
Exactly. Okay. Yep. So just like the vaccines, you're a tinfoil hat wearing conspiracy theorist. If you have any questions about it, now, it's perfectly reasonable if you have questions about it. So I think it's very telling that this case has to do with Ripple's interactions with institutional finance, right? Banks that will spend hundreds of millions or billions of dollars. That's what the case is about, not mum and dad who puts 5 or 10 grand in.
True.
It's about control, absolute control. This is really interesting in terms of on the other side of the coin here, no pun intended, but you've got Russia saying it officially wants to legalize crypto mining, marking a significant step in BRICS digital currency development. So this is getting even more bigger than the SEC. The SEC might say you've done the wrong thing as far as the United States is concerned.
Yep.
Like it or not, these other countries are going, we're going in. And why wouldn't they? Because they've been pushed out of the SWIFT system, which is the old system from the 70s that allows international exchange going on from banks and intermediaries. So if I want to send somebody in the US, Australian dollars, they can find the equivalent and change it into US for me and pay that individual. Now they're saying, right, we want to do this outside of that in terms of currencies because, of course, with the conflict that happens, they were cut out of the SWIFT system. So they're also looking at doing bartering as well amongst nations to keep it off the radar as far as the US is concerned because of the SWIFT system.
Well, and that, by the way, is not new as well. I mean, okay, we can go back to the 60s when there was a lot of bartering between Italy and the USSR at that time when it came to steel. That's how they were paying their bills with steel. So it's not new. That's 60 odd years old and probably older than that.
Well, it's interesting to see nations.
I actually used to work for a barter company when I was quite young, actually. And we learned that one of the biggest barter arrangements that had occurred was between Russia and I believe someone will fact check this. I might be wrong, but I believe it was Russia and Pepsi Cola, where they actually swapped vodka for Pepsi.
Right.
because vodka was so cheap for them to make in Russia, and Pepsi was so cheap for them to make in the US. Look, if you are going to arbitrarily cut people out of the international financial markets,
Mm.
and if 30% of the world's economies are also under sanction, it's only a matter of time before they all link up together and say, "Hey, why don't we trade with each other?" It's only a matter of time. So I think, look, we do need to do something about the conflict around the world, but clearly, just excluding countries from international financial markets is not the way to do it.
Well, not at all. Look, these kind of boycotts have never really worked terribly well. I mean, whether they be sporting boycotts or financials, because where there's a will, there's a way. And I mean, the BRICS nations have certainly proved that. In fact, I would tend to suggest that perhaps what they've done with the BRICS nations is they're going to make another financial superpower that we see the weakness in the US dollar. We see the weakness in the petro system, okay, of that dollar. Perhaps this could be the turning point.
Well, if they had concerns about international nations, now as a conglomerate, the US is finding itself, oh, we've just made the giant even bigger.
Of course they have. Yep.
And that's the big concern here. On the other side of it too, you can see that the BRICS nations are probably in it for different reasons individually in terms of what they're hoping out of the deal.
Yep.
I think, look, the objectives of Russia is going to be very different from the objectives of China.
Yeah.
And why they're doing this. I think Russia's very concerned about the sovereignty of Russia,
of course,
with how it relates to the West on the European side, and in particular, and have influence with China. But the Russians and Chinese are very different,
of course,
very different culturally, and have been enemies in the past as well. So
very good.
It's fascinating. Why would China be doing it well? It comes across as internationally ambitious.
That's beautifully put. Geez, you should be a politician. Look at that.
But so what? That they have different goals. Yeah, like of course people have different goals. Of course countries have different goals.
Yeah.
The question isn't whether they've got different goals. The question is the trade that they're trying to do mutually beneficial? And if it is, of course they should pursue that. We have sat here in the West and we have used our economic and political might to pursue goals that we don't even care about. Like, for example, the woke stuff. We were going to Africa and telling them that they need to embrace LGBTQ. Does China do that when they go into Africa? No. We go to the Pacific Islands, the small countries in the Pacific Islands, Fiji, Vanuatu, Tonga, etc. I can name them all, right? We go in there and tell them to embrace LGBTQ stuff, but we don't give them any ability to enhance their lifestyles and improve their economy. China does. If I was Chinese, I would be saying, "Go China." Thank you, thank you, President Xi, because they are absolutely operating in their best interests. We're the ones that aren't.
We're the fools, quite frankly. Exactly that. We've been working against ourselves in the West for a very long time. And when I say that, we've got an oligarchy system. We've got a system at the top who's just been looking at self-interest, has not cared at all. I mean, we've basically, in America, without doubt, and certainly in Australia, we're just about to completely destroy the middle class, right? I mean, we're essentially living in a world right now in Australia where if you own a home, you're a millionaire. That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. So we've voted for these people. We've allowed the system to overrun us. Some of these other countries are just doing it a lot better, quite frankly.
I think the 30% of Australia that voted for Anthony Albanese must be really upset with his performance.
Oh, you know what? They'll vote for him again, though. Here's the problem: they'll vote for him again because they don't.
He'll definitely get 30% of the vote again. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely lunacy. But
well, it's getting to a point where Australian kids are wondering, can we get into the housing market?
They can't,
right?
And
so they're going to start looking. It was funny last night. My wife loves these renovation shows, particularly her favorite is called Fixer Upper. She's a big fan of Fixer Upper because they do a really cool style, all that. But she's looking at the prices of the houses, right? They buy this property for $80,000 or $50,000, and then they renovate it, put $100,000 into it, and the house is now worth $120,000, $130,000 with the equity they've built into it. And she's going, that's, the price to buy that house is what it costs to buy a new car here in Australia. Why would you? And I think a lot of that generation are probably going to be looking and going, are we better off going overseas and migrating? Can we apply for a passport and visa to get over there, or a visa at least? This is the risk we have here.
Yeah, I love this country very, very much. Will I be retiring in this country? No. Right, I will have to go overseas because I don't have the financial means to actually retire.
Well, not yet.
Country. Not right now, as we stand. And I'm not. And besides, I don't think I'll actually retire. I think I'll drop dead while I'm still working. Let's be very honest, right? I don't think I'm capable of that.
Even if you're a multi-millionaire, why would you stay here when you can go somewhere else and be treated like a king?
Spot on. Absolutely. Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Keep your assets here, keep the income here, and go somewhere else.
Yeah, it's certainly changed.
Well, it's it's going to be rethought, and this is it's simple in Australia. It's about land release and land control of that. It's not like we're busting with millions and millions and millions of people on 1 square meter. We're not measuring. It's not like we're living on an island. It's a big island, guys.
It's a very big island,
and the population is just tiny.
Give it time. Give it time, Derek. The Labor Party's working on having $1 million people per square meter. Do you guys remember Healthy, Wealthy and Wise? Do you guys remember that show? I remember watching that when I was a kid. I remember I was about 9 or 10, and Paul Clitheroe was giving some advice, and he or not advice, but he was giving some suggestions, and he said that when you buy a home, you should buy a home which is 3 to 5 times your annual income.
Yeah.
Today, you need 3 to 5 times your annual income in savings just to put a deposit down on the home.
Yep. Yeah,
that's how much.
The average house is now 8 to 9 times your annual income. Okay, it's not sustainable. It is truly ludicrous,
and that's not counting for tax as well.
No, not at all. Absolutely right. So you're not going to get it there. No, there's so much wrong. Something I became aware of only very recently, that you get obviously all these land deals done here in Western Australia, okay, where they'll open up, say, 50 lots, okay? So no problem. Now, that 50 lots could probably help reduce the problem we have with housing here in Western Australia, with the rental crisis, with the crisis of buying a home. I've got friends right now who have a big chunk of cash in their pocket, can't buy a home, can't find one, right? This is a really big problem. But say the 50 homes are released for this new development. What I wasn't aware of is what they're doing with the venture capitalists in the eastern states, with the fact that, okay, they'll release 50 homes, but they'll release now so that they can get through the West Australian government, so that they can get, the pollies out there cutting the ribbon and doing all that kind of carry on. Of the 50 lots, they'll release literally one single lot to West Australians, and 49 go to venture capitalists in the east, right, who will buy it up because they can see the rental yield is so high. It makes great sense for them. So what have you done? You haven't cured a problem here. You've just brought more rentals into the market on inflated prices, and those inflated prices are keeping people poor forever. This is a massive. Now, I'm for smaller government, but this is a massive failure of our government. They should be stepping in. That should not be able to happen. But when you've got a cozy, and when I'm going to very strongly criticize Labor here, when you have a ridiculously cozy relationship with the development sector here and the Labor government, when they're literally personal friends, and they're all these little deals, here, there, everywhere. When you can buy a power station for $1, when you can have that kind of value of land, this has got to stop.
I'll buy the power station for $1. Look, the issue is that in so-called democracy, the issue is that I never will. Well, I'll rephrase that. I never have. Maybe I will one day. I've never voted for the Labor Party. But realistically, if the Labor Party said that they are going to triple immigration, if they said they're going to 10 times immigration at the next election, if I'm voting in my best interests, I should vote for them. If they say they're going to make trans issues a mandatory situation, etc., then what I should do is I should move to New Zealand, let them make trans a compulsory thing, and let them increase immigration by 10 times. Why? Because I own property, and my family owns property. And the more that the property goes up, the better it is for me, and the more that immigration is increased, the more that there's a critical housing shortage, the more money there is in property.
Again, that is mates for jobs. That is right now politicians.
It doesn't make for jobs though, Aaron. It doesn't make for jobs. What it makes
No.
is a massive increase in the price of non-productive assets.
Absolutely.
And the biggest thing is just note what I said there. If I don't like the politics of Australia, I'll move, but I'll keep my assets here.
Yeah.
How many international investors own assets here? And people go, "Oh, you got the Foreign Investment Review Board rules." Bullshit. There's so many easy ways around those rules. So, foreign investors buy up property here. You end up with massive increases in asset prices forced by an artificial demand that's caused by poor government policy, and the extra revenue that's generated by that all goes offshore.